Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to my fellow subs. This is part two of the lockdown sessions from New Zealand, and we also have some guests as usual with OG, my co-host, and another bunch of our friends that are from mainly America, aren't you guys? I think you are. And so, yes, I wanted to get another show in at least before we come out of lockdown in New Zealand, which is meant to be early next week. And there's a good chance that we will. So we just wanted to talk about today, what's been happening, also how this situation has inevitably pushed people to wake up more from the normal they used to have, and the pros and cons of that. And we might sprinkle a little bit of other philosophical things that we've been talking about as well that are pretty cool. So just to recap, so in New Zealand, we were just talking about this before we started with the show. In New Zealand, when this thing started, we had a chief of police come out who was an older guy, quite ruthless, had a lot of experience. And he threatened, kind of inadvertently in a way, because they're careful how they say things. They have to legalize. The lawyers run over their script before they come out, So this guy basically threatened to bring the military on the streets if the people don't comply. And then they're all going to go, oh my God, this must be serious. And oh my God, I don't want to be shot, because there's an implication you're going to be shot, because what are they going to do? Pat you on the back, the military? They're going to be ruthless. So he then disappeared within a week, and a new frontman came up, the youngest police chief we've ever had in history in New Zealand, and he was a Mr. Smiley nice guy. And then in the same article, the media said that the original police chief will still be the boss in the background. So this is a sort of thing that happens in the media, especially in New Zealand. We're double-thinked and drugged into submission. So, how's it going, OG?
Yeah, it's going pretty good here. I recognize that you probably have global viewers, and yeah, it's a good thing to sit down and look at the silver lining of this looming cloud, right? It to me, it's twofold. Not only is it radicalizing people to some degree to look at this perceived authority of government and get them to question, well, where the fuck do they get the right to just shut down and ruin my life, right? And the other positive aspect for me is all your friends who espouse to be truly aware of these things, and I hate this word, but woke, for lack of a better word. A lot of them have been showing themselves to be nothing more than diet woke, right? They talk a big game, but when it comes down to it, right, they're like, oh no, I better start believing these known liars, and you're crazy for wanting to retain your autonomy, your independence, and there's a lot of good things to come out of this if you're willing to look for it, right? Because you can cut those people off that short list in their thinking that, or your thinking that their thinking aligns with yours, right? Because actions speak louder than words, and all of what they've said doesn't really reflect to how they're acting, right?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, when people do wake up, initially waking up meaning that they see that there's more to the system than they'd seen before. There's more to politics than they saw before. There's a bigger power behind who they're voting for. In other words, that to me is at least the beginnings of someone waking up to the system in a systematic way. The thing we live in and it can't be avoided. The system is the system. The government is only a small part of the system. People need to remember that. The system itself, some would argue, is government because the whole thing governs. But most people, laymen, they talk about government as the parliament, the party, the voting thing. They think that's government. And yet blatantly in the mainstream media, it says the government says this, the government says that, the Crown says this, the Crown says that, and therefore the politicians have to comply with that. And that's in our face too. But nobody talks about it. Nobody really talks about it. So has this diet woke or caffeine-free, caffeine-free woke, which is more, that people lack motivation to even look. They're diet woke, oh my God, something's wrong, but now I'm going to just watch media and play video games like they told me to. And vote, because I'm frustrated and this person's not right. So it's obviously way bigger than that. And people that are just waking up to this, it is a journey. It takes time to really understand what's happening. And there are still a lot of people out there that can teach you and get you up to speed. And a lot of those people are on my channel, So, so have people woken up to this scenario, which is global, let's not forget, that has absolute smatterings of Agenda 21 attached to it, for those that have looked into Agenda 21, which is the agenda for the 21st century, which is a 100-year plan. That's what it's called, the agenda for the 21st century. So have they woken up to that? And I would say for the majority, no.
Well, I mean, it's crazy how in plain sight, how hidden in plain sight all of this stuff is, right? A lot of people don't even really understand that the Federal Reserve isn't federal at all. It's not a public holding, right? This is a private bank. And, to those who take the time to investigate, right, this is old hat. But yeah, the majority, they don't know. They don't care. It's like Carlin said, they own you. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. And yeah, it is sad. And all of these things that we've paid attention to that the masses don't, right? They're too busy getting that new shiny flashy thing to impress people that they don't know and buying it with the money that they don't even have, right? They're so caught up in that vapid lifestyle that they don't know the value of anything, right? And several years ago, I seen a meme, and it just stuck with me because it rings so true in a society that profits off of self-doubt. Knowing yourself is an act of rebellion, and who wants to take the time to know themselves, right? It's uncomfortable. It's growth. There are pains associated with it. It's change. It's all of these things that that take away from our comfort, and it's to our detriment. But it's the path of least resistance that is really harming a lot of people. And I get it. It's easy. It's convenient. It's in vogue. Whatever, right? And it's sad at the same time because you notice people, or you just look at people and look at their motivations, what they think their meaning of life is, and it's more often times than not that vapid, flashy, pseudo life that everyone strives for.
Yep. And short-term game, of course, is another part of that. Short-term game, not immediate gain, not immediate game to the point of being in the present moment. Hey, not being present moment, but short-term game. So you're looking to the future, you're not in the present moment, seeing properly. You're thinking about the future, but the future they're thinking about generally is short-term. And this is why, again, part of looking at this bigger picture, you start to see that powerful people, they work in big plans. They work long-term plans and the detail. But, long-term plans. So it sort of gets you thinking away from the average public thinking, which is short-term. Live for the news, what they tell me today on the news, which of course is controlled by, the Royal Institute and the Council on Foreign Relations. So you control all the news, all the mainstream that permeates to the people. They have to get to know that. So this lockdown, just what you're saying before, it's the silver lining is, you've got time out now to think, to sit down, think, meditate even. Try meditation. That's part of knowing yourself, and use the time to educate yourself if you think something's wrong. All the information's out there. You're going to say something, Zotac?
Well, and spoiler alert, because we're going to be talking about some aspects of the Fountainhead and how they're analogous to all of this. But first spoiler, it's reminiscent of everyone paying attention to the character that is Ellsworth Toohey in that movie, right? And that's the society that that's what they want everyone to focus on, that aspect of society. And there's one scene in the movie where Rourke, he's struggling to find his way in the market of architecture. And he's walking by all of these construction sites, and his name's not on that placard, right? Because he's not getting the work, and he sort of seems downtrodden, but he's not. I mean, because he knows himself. And that's the first part, right? Knowing yourself, knowing who you are. And he crosses paths with Tui, and Tui's like, I did this to you. My voice in the media has made you an outcast in your industry. What do you think of me? And the beautiful response by Rourke was, I don't think of you, right? Because he knows himself, and to know your genuine self, all of this vapid stuff melts away, right? And sooner rather than later, after knowing yourself, all of it's unimportant, because you know what drives you. You know what is right, what's moral, what's just. You're honest with yourself in almost everything that you do.
Yep. And then consequently, those that look into things like mysticism, which is actually to do with self-development, believe it or not, and intuition, things like that, to develop intuition, is when you start to know yourself, you see more lie. Because you're being honest with yourself, you're changing your inner filters of consciousness. You start to learn what's right. You'll see more lie. So there's a reward straight away right there. But hey, would you go over, because some people on my channel especially are probably not aware of Ayn Rand's book, The Fountainhead, which OG's talking about, the movie that was made, that you probably even find for free out there. Do you want to tell us a bit about that and the characters you mentioned, the Tui and Rourke?
Yeah, I mean, it's really allegorical, and I'm no Randian expert. She has a pretty wide breadth of philosophy that I'm rather ignorant on. I'm. It's funny because Cliff is hosting this, but I'm more of a Cliff Notes guy, and I don't really take the time, effort, and energy to delve really deep in these things. But the Fountainhead has some really, really well developed characters in it, and they're such apt representations of society as a whole, on this micro scale, right? We're looking at individuals that have been cultivated in this movie and book, and it's not only knowing yourself, but it's the recognition that any and everything that we do stems from self-interest, and the idea to put society above or before us is to fail. And every time that's come up in these cycles of societies, um, it's created hard times for soft men. And of course, it takes a hard man to make an easy time. And we're just not at that point in this story arc right now. We're in the soft men and hard times, and this is going to create a lot of hard men. So I think I'm pretty optimistic and hoping for the future, but I'm pretty pragmatic in realizing that it is going to get very messed up, you know, before it gets any better. And it's such a beautiful representation. If no one has seen it, or if you haven't seen it for a long time, because I think it's circa 1949, right? So it's long since past people's recollection, and I only stumbled upon it a few months ago myself, and found it to be so undervalued, right? Everyone thinks of Ayn Rand and they associate Atlas Shrugged with her fictional work. And though Atlas Shrugged is pretty profound, it pales in comparison, in my opinion, um, to how poignant the Fountainhead is.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I watched the movie twice in the last 2 weeks. You know, it's black and white. You know, so some of you guys that are younger, you'd think, "What? This is really old," but and it is different than those days. You know, it's, the society, the culture has moved on now so much that you go and look at all these old movies, and I find this fascinating. Go and look at old movies, all of them. Look at the 1930s, 1940s, black and white, scientific movies too. H.G. Wells movies. Yeah, H.G. Wells's Fabian Society. So all these old movies are just gone out of the culture now because they're part of your culture now. They don't need the movies anymore. So there's a lot of wisdom in the past, and especially after World War II and World War One, because they called that an apocalypse, and the apocalypse is really, like some of you have heard before, the removal of the face mask or the mask. So that's what we got today, you know. So whenever things go wild and tyrannized, you get more tyranny in society, the mask is coming off. It's as simple as that. And then you'll get the same effects that you had in a wartime scenario. And consequently, the managers, the global managers, like to create a wartime scenario. That's what they've been dreaming up. And consequently, that's why this fits into Agenda 21. So it's not just good for the individuals to work on themselves to see more lie, and then to see more lie, you obviously won't do it anymore because you'd rather do what's right. And what's right is self-preservation. And all the beautiful things that we are, creativity, individual thinking, the ability to be yourself. To question everything in the public. Always.
Yeah, and if you keep making these compromises, right? Compromises, sooner or later, you won't recognize yourself, let alone be able to know yourself. And of course, we all tell ourselves lies to be able to see this reality. But it's about telling ourselves as few lies as possible, right? And it's about being brutally honest with ourselves. I I was a party to a conversation that the individual, they they were lying to themselves, and I felt obliged to point that out. And in pointing that out, they were willing to just whistle past the graveyard of their own lie and let it rest. And they went on to justify these lies. And I can't change anyone. I can only change myself. But I think it behooves society to um, call the bullshit whenever we see it, right? Shed the euphemisms. Um, War is murder. Taxation is theft. Government is slavery. And we've been trained and programmed with this Orwellian newspeak, right? And oh, it's so that's profound in and of itself as well, because they keep hearing this lie over and over again about freedom is slavery, war is peace, ignorance is strength. And you know, if we succumb to that, if we start believing this euphemistic language because they're soft words and they're more palatable, but we need to look at objective reality and everything that we can see. And that's the power to affect meaningful change, right? To live, to be the change you wish to see in this world, and live in a manner that attracts other people. They're like, well, this dude's got something figured out. He has an air of confidence to him. He has something driving him that isn't so mercurial, and I want to know what that is. And
Yeah, man.
yeah, it's just it's crazy how really simple it is, but we're so confused that we don't even recognize what simple is.
Yeah, and that's again, that's a brainwashing. The particular type of mind control is many things, and it would behoove people to. I know it's painful, and like myself, when I got into it, it was like, am I going to go mad if I study propaganda and mind control? Am I going to go mad? Because that is a big step, but it would behoove you to do it. Many people that have looked at it are well and healthy and living well. That we're not going insane. I've done it. I'm not. I'm very stable in my life, and I continue to learn and continue to grow. And the payoff for doing that is you lose your boredom. A lot of people out there that are stuck in this confusion. Another symptom is boredom. People, oh, I'm bored. Oh, I need the next phone. I need the next game. I need the next movie. I need all these things to keep me from being bored. Well, man, you start learning about yourself, and consequently the world will open up to you. The last thing you'll be is bored. You won't be able to uh, almost sleep at night because you're so busy to get up the next day and learn more. That's kind of like a payoff. But you're talking about Newspeak, and just to clarify, Newspeak and the study of Newspeak, which was a George Orwell creation in his book 1984, is a combination of doublethink, which is to speak a word or a sentence that means two things at once. So you believe them both because you accept the sentence, and you have then cognitive dissonance, which you believe two opposite extremes at the same time. You get cognitive dissonance, that is a type of disassociation. Alan Watt called it click mode. You turn into a robot, click, 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 and consequently we have all these robots out there. Then the other part of Newspeak is neurolinguistics. That's the correct term to study if you want to learn more. And neurolinguistics is sugarcoating the pill. That's all it is. They'll say, oh, we're going to enhance you, or it's going to be exciting, or it's going to be bright. You're going to have a bright future. All these vague words that have a positive meaning is permeated not just through government newspeak, but through all the corporations that sell their stuff to you and rip you off consequently too, as you know. Like they'll use their statistics and all that. So isn't this obvious, And then the other point is why, if you're going to vote, at least if you're going to get and talk, well, I don't know how you're going to do it, but but if you go and talk to these so-called leaders, I call them misleaders, but if you go to the leaders, why not ask them better questions? Why not get to the real facts of what's going on and not just these stupid benefits that they keep giving us? It's like all they can talk about is benefits. Oh, we don't know about that. It's not our department, but we've got this new benefit. We're going to increase your subsidies, and we're going to increase taxation over here on the rich again. We're going to redistribute the wealth under a la Karl Marx again. We're going to do that for you, okay? See, but a lot of people don't know that you live in a Marxian system. They openly tell you it's a redistribution of wealth. Karl Marx.
And your liberties, they're not dying. They're being killed by men with names and addresses, right? But everyone acts like, oh, this is just falling out of the sky, and I don't know how this is happening, right? We can put a name, and if you're astute enough and diligent enough, you can put a name and face to everyone who's doing this to you. This isn't coming out of nowhere. And a lot of people are like, well, oh my God, well, where do I start? And how you eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? Just take the time to, and I would imagine if you're here looking at Cliff's channel, you are inquisitive and you do question the narrative at the very least. I mean, he's showcased a lot of quality content, and that's a step in the right direction, right? So I applaud all of your listeners for that.
Yep. Yeah, and there's I think other teachers or leaders, we'll call them in this, we'll call truth movement, have all said the same thing. Those that are worth their weight in salt have always said, this is a journey, this is a life journey. You choosing to wake up, you choosing to take the red pill and not the blue pill. Blue pill is you going back to the media and games and that and not thinking. You taking the red pill, you turn your mind on and you begin to think for yourself. Simple as that. And then you're going to change forever. That is the fact. You will never, ever go back to how it was. But initially it will be hard because you got to adjust. But once you adjust, you will never, ever dream of going back. I was in cognitive dissonance for years, and I'm fucking very glad I took the red pill. Very glad. And it is painful. The world is a horrible place, but you can still get joy out of it. There's still hope. There's always hope as long as you live. And what's live? To think.
Yeah, and you keep saying cognitive dissonance, and just look at that word, right? Disown. You're unwilling or unable to own the truth because it goes against your already formulated perception, right? So you become in conflict with who you think you are, and that's great though. That's healthy. That's at least entertaining something other than your foregone conclusion. And these aspects that scare us are the things that we need to embrace the most, right? We need to look at the evil. We need to grow in everything we do. Otherwise, we're just stagnating in a quagmire that we'll never get out of.
It kind of reminds me of another talk, if people want to hear. I'm sure a lot of you will. We want to do a talk on Carl Jung's divided self. Carl Jung talk. He's one that will definitely go into facing the shadow, so to speak, facing the evil in yourself and out in the world. And the way I see it, it's one and the same. If you study the evil in the world, you'll learn to study yourself. And if you learn to study yourself, you'll start to study the outer world. It seems to be reciprocal. And so Carl Jung's divided self goes into this whole problem that we have as humanity. That's what the whole book is about. We're divided. We're not making an integration of these two worlds, the inner world and the outer world, and the effects, the true effects that it has, which, oh my God, might lead you to see you have true power in the world. It might make you realize that, oh my God, I am powerful, to the average Joe that wakes up and thought, oh no, I just got to do what everyone tells me. No. And part of the killing off of the boredom of looking into this stuff is that you learn to spread your wings. So if you learn to spread your wings, that is exciting enough. Let alone where you can fly now. You can now fly to greater heights. Then you'll see that the people that don't choose to do that will probably not like you. That's another byproduct. But that's just too bad. That's part of the pain. You've got to overcome that. You've got to learn that. That will in turn give you freedom. See? Because like the governmental system itself clamping down around you is collectivized people that follow its orders. Then they will come and clamp down on you too, see? So it's like the old crabs in a bucket. Whenever you try and get out of the bucket, you're going to try and pull you back down into it. And so consequently, if you are determined, you'll say, no, fuck off. I'm going to do this myself, and I'm going to learn this right. I'm going to learn to do it right, because there's a right way of doing it. And then that's it. It's goodbye crabs. You're out of the bucket. No crab can do nothing anymore. That's the reward. And you're not hurting anybody. That's the cool thing. The only way you can go higher to your freedom is to learn about people. You actually get more empathy. That's what's so crazy. Everyone thinks, oh my God, an individual, I could be selfish. And if you can say some quotes of the Rourke would be a good time now, OG, because he said some beautiful quotes about the importance of being yourself.
Yeah, and I wish I had some Rourke quotes off the top of my head, but I can paraphrase. And in the courtroom scene, he brings up such beautiful illustrations that man has created and innovated through the want or willingness to make his existence better. And they're seen by their tribe, whether it's the first to utilize fire. They're seen by their tribe as something not to be desired, right? But the technology that comes from that effort remains, and we do things not for the benefit of others. We do things for the benefit of ourselves, and there's something admirable in the recognition of that, right? That what we do is for us. Maybe we're lifting up our community, but in doing so, we do that for ourselves because we want our community to be stronger or more dynamic or more healthy overall. And it's just, I implore anyone listening to this to take the 2 hours of their time to watch that beautiful movie. And it has something for everyone too. It has a love story. It has a principled man standing against the world and being beaten down and doing so, but coming out on top, because at the end of the day, he was true to himself. And that perseverance pays dividends.
Yeah, beyond imagination. That's how I see it too. The rewards that you get are not foreseen. You will not believe the rewards you get when you get them. And I can't tell you what you'll get because everyone's path is different. I appreciate that. That's a whole new world because we're brainwashed into this total false collective. It's a false collective. The more we get into socialism, the more you're social distanced. See, this is again, it's newspeak, double thing. They'll call it socialist, but you're more separated. So it's false. It's part of the technique of the of mind control and the system and all that. It gets you into cognitive dissonance. You can't quite make sense of it. There's nothing to hold on to. There's no stability. There's no clarity. Admit it. There's no clarity. If you read the news and you believe it and you get into that type of thing in the political pigsty, there's nothing to hold on to there. And even if you did, even if you said, right, I'm going to take coffee every day and I'm going to slap myself out of it, I'm going to try and figure this shit out and see if I can find a glitch in the matrix and catch them out. And you will catch them out. You'll see the news contradict itself. You'll see it say one thing one day, another thing the other, the complete opposite. So then you start to see, hang on, the news is something else. It's not what I thought it was. No, it's not. It's not. It's a technique. I mean, I still look at the news to see what are they giving the people today, because it still exists. Nothing's changed in the media. Hey, every few years, the corruption leaks out, and the people go, oh, that's terrible, and then they go back to normal again. So it's incredible. They have to get we have to. The only time we're really going to see a change is when that media changes. Really, do we have to get rid of a collective media? I don't think so. I think that the media has a purpose, but it's been manipulated to give a certain slant where everyone right through the pyramid is paid off, and if you're not happy or you complain or you're not doing your job, you're fired. Simple. Get the next man in that will be more in the mold that we need. So it's really simple to run society when it's punishment and reward. That's the other thing. It's punishment and reward. If you're not going to serve society with your, like going back to Rourke and the Fountainhead, then you'll never get a job anywhere. It's the threat. You're going to starve to death.
Well, yeah, and in one of the scenes, he's trying to win a commission for this building, and they say, "All right, yeah, you can get this commission if you compromise." And he says, "No, I will not compromise." And they're like, "Oh, you're crazy. You'll starve. What are you going to do? You can't live like that." And he says, "I would rather work as a day laborer than to let you change who I am and my work." Right. And he does so. He goes and works in a granite mine, backbreaking labor rather than to sell himself. Right. And it's just an air of nobility, an air of virtue that I know, well, I don't know, but I don't think I'll ever attain. But it's such an admirable goal to strive for, right? And we want to be true to ourselves. And of course, the media will persist. And, it's okay. I understand that. I accept that. And getting rid of the media won't change anything, right? Protesting won't change anything. Voting for the right criminal won't change anything. All of these things, and being armed, rebelling, revolting, it all is unable to make or affect a real change in this world. You need to remove this idea that there is an authority there, whether it be government or political authority, right? If you think that these people author reality, you're sadly mistaken, and nothing will change. It doesn't matter how hard you fight back. If you believe in them, and if you put trust or credence in them, you do what you always done, and you're going to get what you always got.
Yes, exactly. And that's what was that saying? Definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result and not getting it. So yeah, and in the Fountainhead, I mean, I don't mind a few little spoilers because it is a 2 hour long movie. And what was the name of the media company there?
You keep putting me on the spot, and I keep drawing a blank. It was Gail Winans' company. I want to say, I damn it, damn you, Cliff.
Look it up. No, it's all right. Look it up. But yeah, the media again though symbolically see all these movies. In fact, all movies really, or just about everything. To my mind, with what I've looked at, is all symbolic. So look at the greater symbolism in the movie too. Not even what they were saying, but the set pieces, and it's incredible. And even this whole thing of love at first sight, because it's a love story too. In truth, it even gives you that. So it teaches you about love, especially with the opposite sex. Uh, it gives you a whole truth on that, which I thought was amazing. I thought, man, that's so cool. That just demonstrates stability. It's almost like if you want to get married, well, look at this movie because it'll give you a foundation. So it even heals relationships, and you could see in the courtroom thing, the people felt so good about what that guy said, you know. Um, the truth seems to echo, through people's souls. Once they see it, there's no going back. And really, that's what we need to do. There's too much still just negativity out there. We know things are negative. They're in our face now. A lot of the people looked at my stuff know it's incredibly negative. So where's the solutions? Yeah, well, we're putting solutions out all the time. And it is about self-empowerment. It's not about a collective empowerment. It's about a self-empowerment. Those that have even looked at some of the motivators in the past, you will benefit from today. The problem is, though, that say Anthony Robbins and all that sort of thing, which he's a brilliant guy, but some may take that kind of drive and then be dishonest, or corrupt. Their ambition is too big. They start to get corrupt. So you'll then have a fall. Either which way, you're going to somehow have a fall. So, obviously someone should be ambitious with their life. It's your life. You may only have one of it. So, but it's just, we're always trying to figure out what is right to do, what is overstepping the line, in just business, in your life. And so that's why a lot of us, as some of do a lot of role playing, and we'll role play with government figures or whatever. We could role play a relationship, but it teaches you about how to deal justly with people, to the point where you don't even need to argue. I mean, did Rourke in the court argue? He didn't do anything of the type. He certainly didn't hire a lawyer, did he?
No, he was resting on his laurels, right? He was stating matter of factly that someone took his effort and perverted it, and he couldn't abide, and he took action to stop that from happening, and he got off. He got off because people were like, "Yeah, who are they to change you and what your imagination manifested?" And another interesting scene in that movie was when Peter Keating got the commission, and it was really Rourke's work that Peter was passing off as his own, and it was a pretty large project, and a lot of hands got in that pie, and Peter Keating said, you can't change this because that was the only condition that Rourke did that work for him. And they were like, sure we can. And Peter was like, no, we had a contract. And at the end of the day, they were like, so what are you going to do? Sue us? We'll win. We're bigger than you. We have more power.
Yeah.
We have more influence. We have more resources. So what when so much is taken away from you, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, what was that song? Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. It was Janis Joplin. And that's true too, you know. So this is why, but this is why this particular type of tyranny that they want to make, this global tyranny, and there's a reason why it's global, is to appease the people too. You know, this is why, and I don't know if we're going to have much time left, but I'd like to do a bit of a show on the relationship between today and how it's so tied in with the medical industry, as anyone can see, and then start talking about Huxley and Brave New World. I mean, there you go. You know, you're heading into Huxley's Brave New World, and there's many quotes that he said, Aldous Huxley, that are definitely coming true now. You know, we already knew they were true back then, but now you got Big Pharma coming in, and people better wake up, because they could easily start to bring in another Patriot Act, the US, and then make it global. They could put in a medical act, some kind of big medical act, where the technology that they have, which you can see being pushed out there. I mean, I posted an article of a guy in New Zealand who owned the warehouse thing, which is like Walmart in America. The warehouse brings in tons of junk from China. And this guy, Tyndall, Steve Tyndall, I think his name is, he is the owner of the warehouse and a lot of other companies. So him and his evil scientists and that are in the background doing deals with China, because he's already dealing with China, and they're building these scanners that he wants all through the country. You know, one in your home probably, and they scan for your heat to see if you've got a fever. I mean, what the hell is this? Do you want this? Do you want to be scanned all the time for a fever? Is it necessary? What the hell? You know?
Yeah, and I mean, it amazes me that people are so willing to give up pieces of themselves, right? And it all stems from this looming specter of fear, right? This pernicious aspect of humanity that they seem to leverage most often.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so if people believe the media, which of course they do, hey, and there's some truth in the media. I'm not saying they will lie all the time, but they'll twist the truth. And a lot of people know that now. A lot of people hate the media. Look how negative it is. Look at the one I'm noticing is with the economy, which is really just based on mind control. The whole economy is based on mind control. If they get the right people at the right time to come out and say the right things with the right symbols and surroundings, you'll believe them. And who's you? You might not believe them, but the guy at the stock market, the guy invested in stocks, is going to pull it out because that guy came forward and said what he said. He's just one guy with an opinion. But then all of a sudden the economy crashes. So when the media pumps all this negative shit out, it's a lie. Again, it goes back to the individual. If the natural changes in society through nature itself or with government, there's always a silver lining. And you'll see the people in business, like Tyndall, rush and run to quickly take opportunity out of all this stuff. You know, but the sad thing is with people like that is it's like, one, is it necessary? Two, it's on taxpayer money. Three, this is just a foot in the door. What's he going to add to the next year and the next year to these scanners? What, they start to mind control you and read your mind? See, so people don't look to the future in the right way. They're looking to the future what the media tells them. And his business plan probably is to do that, to eventually get these scanners to mind control you. This is the sort of thing they do. And why? Because the government will fund it. It wants it. It's interested in knowing what you think. So it'll help him. It'll fund him. It'll protect him. The government will protect him, you see. And it'll protect him because he's got experience and competency to run these huge organizations on behalf of government that can shut him down if he goes against the agenda. This is how they do it. So these people at the top should be questioned. You know, those in the money power that hear this talk, or others like it, ask the right questions. Let's get into this. Let's question these so-called powerful people as to their plans. And that it's dangerous. All of these double-edged swords being thrown at us of technology must be severely kept in check. And the military aspect to it is horrendous, because look how fine-chopped that is to get the foot in the door for your safety, which is impossible. Do you feel safe with a tyrannical government? How's that being safer? I don't know.
Well, and I think this is a pretty powerful question to ask of people. How many people must die for you to give up your liberty? Right? And, you know, I've asked several people, and they've had to think about it. And quite a few people, though, have said all of them, which is the right answer, right? Because your rights, your liberty, aren't currency to be traded for some idea or perception of safety, right? And it's disheartening that so many people that I have asked that question of have to think about it, right? Because it should be, there should be no thinking involved, right? It's so simple, it's so blatant, and yet people question what they know to be true, right? They're so programmed to think that their safety is someone else's responsibility, and that their safety could be imposed on from others who think they know better on how you should live your life. But we take risks every day. We don't even have to leave our house, but when we do leave our house, like an example is, we take a huge risk by propelling this couple ton vehicle around with other people that are propelling their couple ton vehicles, right? And oh my God, there's a risk of damage or harm. So we should just abolish cars. That'll fix it. That'll make us all safe. But people make those associations with something else. And I don't understand it. I understand why they do it. I don't understand why they let themselves be fooled.
And Cliff, you asked, or you said something that piqued my interest regarding government and feeling safe. Do you feel safe with your government, or something along those lines? I forget, but it's Go ahead and say that one more time, just so I'm clear.
Yeah, I mean, the part of the reason why people are more prone to wake up now is the rubber meeting the road, and the media will even tell them this to some degree, where the tyrannical of necessity, which is a stretchable thing, right? Hey, well, that's a very vague term of necessity. So governments of necessity to tyrannize you, to violate your constitution, be it Bill of Rights or US Constitution, which of course is an idea, right? It's just an idea. You're not a party to it. We know that, but it's an idea that people can develop to get their own freedom, to manifest with their words what they need. So this tyranny, does it make you feel safer? Really? I mean, I'm pretty sure there'd be a lot of people that say, no, I feel very unsafe. I could lose my job. They're going to put me on rations, which, the whole thing could bloody fall over yet. What if a group of revolutionaries funded by governments now start to bring out the guns and start shooting politicians? Not that, I mean, we know they're pretty much criminals, but the bottom line is the whole thing could really get unstable. See? So, well, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying this is the danger of government is right in your face now, and it's showing you the contradiction between what is safe, what is truly safe. And I should bring up the Machiavelli quote as well, that basically the only real security you'll get in your life, and Machiavelli would train kings, right? He's no slouch with psychology and human nature. So he's saying that the only security that you will ever have is the one that you make, that you build, that you secure. No one else. Because like OG said, really everyone's in for their own interest. Even it is if they give freely. You can truly hypnotize yourself to love humanity deeply and go and give everything to everybody. But why are you doing that? Ultimately, why are you doing that? Even if you were in bliss, why are you doing that? Isn't there a benefit? I mean, you get the benefit of making the world a better place. See? So everyone works to a benefit. And those that are more unaware of the importance of everyone else, that's another thing. Like, to be an individual does not mean that you discount your fellow man at all. In fact, you actually put him up higher because you don't want to violate his rights. If I violate his rights, I'm losing my rights, and I don't want to lose my rights. That's my benefit. So he wins and I win. So yeah, are you scared of this tyrannical government that's keeping you safe? That's my question.
Well, I've got to argue against your idea that to be an individual, you need to put others above you, right? And that it seems a little double speaking there, right? Because to be an individual is to put yourself above all, right? And in doing so, you recognize the benefit of this association with other people, right? You don't put them above you, and you always put yourself first, right? And
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
there's something to be benefited from that association, that symbiosis, but you do that by putting yourself first, right? You put yourself
Yeah.
above all.
Yeah. Well, and why I think that came out of me is of the perspective, and I mean I've got a lot of different areas I've looked at. So my perspective of putting him above me is to not underestimate him. That's why I do it. See, if I have a tendency to see him as an equal, I could be wrong. And what do I mean by equal? If I see him as my true equal in actions and thinking and agreements, I don't think it's there. Everyone's going to differ. So if I'm going to keep him lower than me, now I'm the tyrant. If I have him above me, it doesn't mean I'm going to take his orders, but it means I'm going to not underestimate him. So that's kind of what I mean. But you are right. Yeah, you got to do it yourself. But by my fellow man, you see what I'm saying? My fellow man, if I underestimate him. See, so I'm going to have more care when I deal with him. It doesn't mean good or bad. It means I'm going to be watching for his narcissistic tendencies too. So I'm not looking at him as a fluffy thing above me. You know what I mean?
I feel you need to put yourself first as far as like having your affairs in order before you can do anything for anybody else. But at the same time, putting yourself beside your fellow man and, you know, random acts of kindness and such.
Yeah, well, yeah, if that works for you, to try it, do these things. I mean, everyone's going to be on their different levels of how they see their interactions with their fellow man in general. But yeah, for sure, man. But what do you think, OG? I mean, do you see my perception of what I'm getting at? I mean, the foundation is, yeah, of course, your world is kind of coming from yourself in a lot of ways. You should have full responsibility. So, do you get what I'm saying about putting my fellow man above me sometimes?
No, I understand how you explained it, but how you said it was it wasn't really analogous to uh, how you explained it, right? Because of course you need to recognize the perils associated with the mob or with any collective, right? Especially as being an individual in that thing, right? And Yeah, you can prioritize an effective defense against the onslaught that could come from that, but you don't put that above you. You don't put that before you, right? You put those things in your arsenal because you put yourself first, right?
Yes. Yeah,
And
that's. Yeah.
yeah, I understand what you maybe meant when you said that, but what you said was very triggering for me because it 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 leaves this connotation, this bitter taste in my mouth that you would actually may mean, and a lot of people might infer that you would put another man above you.
Nice. And it's good for you to clarify that, because when we're talking about these things deeply in a creative way, I myself can go off on a tangent on the level I'm talking about. And so it's great you clarify, because then it leads to deeper things. And this is why, like a lot of people out there that even do talks and do shows, if you accept that someone isn't going to understand what you said or disagree, that's good. And if they're mature enough to ask a good question about it, that's good, because then you can clarify. It doesn't mean you don't know. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means, it doesn't even mean you fucked up. It just means, hey, someone needs clarification here. And it could be both of you. So it's, yeah, it's good. So yeah, there are a lot of fine points in all this stuff. I've studied a lot of different areas, and they, when we talk about things, sometimes they overlap. Because you've got different levels of discussion, especially about man and this fictional government and the collective or the individual. There's a lot of levels in between, and sometimes they intercept, sometimes they relate, and another reason why I would, and this is getting a little bit off topic, but it just as an example of relationship of what I'm talking about, is sometimes in studies of the system, say like in commerce is definitely connected to behavior, even in my opinion, because it's transactional. So in commerce, you have a debtor and a creditor. I've probably talked about this before. And this goes into the court. The plaintiff is the creditor. The defendant is the debtor. He's defending. He's obligated. He's got to defend. So he's a debtor. He owes. See? So in court or in commerce, both pretty much the same. You have to play the debtor sometimes, technically speaking. You can act creditor to get control, but sometimes we've found you can even win or benefit both parties even by becoming a debtor. See, so there's many little rabbit holes of wiggle room that you weren't taught about, that when you look at them, you'll look at different ways of seeing things. You'll have more options on a subject. This is why it's so addictive. Once you crack things open and start to open your mind and look at things from at least two angles, you get a fuller picture and you get more choice. And that's what freedom in the mind is. You've got more choice.
Yeah, and who doesn't want more choices, right? I mean, to limit yourself and the availability of option is, I don't know how people can have that as their druther. I mean, I'm so baffled and befuddled by human nature. It's there, and you're right. There are so many points to talk about. Maybe a poll of your audience. Maybe if they'd like to hear longer conversations, we could oblige, because it seems as if we just touch on so many things to race through them, and maybe that's not the way, right? I don't know. This is all new to me. I'm not much of a podcaster myself, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people just want that hard-hitting 10-minute video that's easy to digest. So maybe we could play with that. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind that and a lot of you guys have heard this before too, that a good teacher, or I guess we'll just say teacher for now, will give the student a cursory information about a subject that titillates them enough to go and do their own research, which is inevitable. You just can't do it. You can't sit there and just say everything. You may as well sit there reading a book for the person. And that's not fun for me anyway. I wouldn't want to do that. So to have a free flow talk and let the ideas flow like we're doing, especially with the right chemistry, is to just get into these different joins or joinder or offshoots of subjects, maybe that people haven't heard before. And why? Because they didn't look at it from multiple angles. That's one of them. And then so you find these new avenues and new avenues of thinking, new avenues of questioning. And away you go, but you ultimately have to do the studied research yourself and do your own thinking and questioning. And then the more of us that do this technique, which is, I think, fantastic, it's addictive even, there's all these other individuals coming out with their 10 cents worth of questions that are brilliant that we can't think of. See? So anyone can do this. It's just a matter of choosing to do it and getting out there and contributing. And we can raise the level of the general people, to another level of consciousness. But and we can see the proof of that. Here's another one for you. We can see the proof of that. Those of us that have been on this journey for a long time, and some that are halfway there, and some that are new, let's say categorize them that way. They who've been on it a long time, go back and look at the old videos that you used to watch that woke you up. I do all the time. It's fantastic. And I learn new things all the time when I watch them. But if you're a researcher or you're into this stuff and you've learnt a lot of it and you want to be free, you have learnt a lot more now of understanding beyond that video or book that you read 10 years ago. Right? So if you go back to the book, you look at it with new eyes, so to speak. You see it deeper, But nevertheless, you go back to the movie or book or whatever, or video, and you look at it and you think, yeah, I saw this ages ago and I already know this. I already know this stuff. Right? You'd say that to yourself. So there's the proof that the consciousness is moving for people that are doing this sort of research. It's old hat. Those that are just coming out now, it's like, oh my God, I didn't know any of this. And we're like, this is old hat. So there's the proof there that of how consciousness can change. Everyone's up to speed to a certain level. Where if someone says, oh, what about this? You say, but hang on, don't you know about this? And they'll say, oh, yeah, no, I didn't know that. Most of these other people are already up to speed. You see, so people can get there. People can get to that point. Even with the freedom movement too. A lot of people go, nah, that doesn't work. But sometimes there's a lot of things in the past too that people missed or that people never tried, or that things that worked too that people never thought to use. And you say, didn't you do that? This works. Like, oh, that's old now. No, we do it this way now. Or we don't know what to do. So and that's history, eh? We go back into the old books and we find these old things that actually do work. And then you put them in your modern world now, they still work. So it's another little blind spot. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up now a little bit. So anything else you want to bring up? Do you want to finish off with any more Fountainhead stuff?
No, I think leaving people wanting more is the way to get them going, right? Just drop a morsel and say, well, that was sort of interesting. let me figure this shit out for myself, because I'm not going to take your word for it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that being said, Cliff, thanks for having me on another one of your podcasts, and I hope that we enlighten someone along the way, or at least brought up something that maybe people haven't considered before.
Yep. Sounds good. So with that being said, thank you very much. I hope your lockdown ends soon, and good luck out there, and we'll see you next time. Be seeing you.
Be seeing you.